Hello, invisible friend. April here, and the date today is March 16th, 2026. Welcome to episode 336 of the Big Sky Astrology Podcast. This week, Venus creates some tension with a square to Jupiter. The Sun makes an exciting sextile to Uranus, then enters Aries and the Equinox. The Pisces New Moon carries the influence of unpredictable Uranus, and Mercury in Pisces stations direct. Emotions risk boiling over when Mars meets with Jupiter, and the Sun and Neptune spotlight creative pioneers. About a month ago, on February 22nd, Venus and Jupiter met in a trine aspect at 15 degrees Pisces and Cancer. At that time, both planets were in the signs of their exaltation, where they were dignified and powerful, and Jupiter was retrograde. That was a moment of relative ease, generosity, and emotional abundance. Now we're kind of revisiting this Venus-Jupiter story, but under very different conditions. This week, on Wednesday, March 18th, these planets meet at 9:08 a.m. in a square aspect, which signals tension and requires adjustment. Venus is now in Aries, the sign of her fall, while Jupiter is still exalted in Cancer and is now moving direct. So the desire for pleasure and comfort and growth is still strong, but it doesn't come about quite so effortlessly. Venus-Jupiter transits are meant to bring more pleasure, more satisfaction, more enjoyment of life. But because this is a square between individualistic Aries and family-centered Cancer, that more may come with pushback from your inner circle. What you want for yourself might conflict with what others need from you. This is a moment that calls for compromise. One of the big questions is, how much of a good thing is too much? Venus in Aries can be impulsive, and buyer's remorse is definitely a possibility, especially with Mercury still retrograde. This isn't about denying yourself the things that you want, but it's about learning what truly makes you feel good in a lasting way. Often real happiness and satisfaction comes from balance, having some of what you want without sacrificing too much to get it, too much money or space or peace of mind. The Sun in Pisces sextiles Uranus in Taurus on Wednesday, March 18th at 1:20 p.m. Pacific Time at 28 degrees 14 minutes Pisces in Taurus. Whenever the Sun and Uranus make a connection, there's an opportunity, sometimes a sudden one that comes out of nowhere, to reinvent ourselves a little bit. Uranus represents an awakening and liberation, and a sextile is a friendly aspect. It doesn't force change, but it opens a door if you're willing to walk through. That can feel exciting and freeing, but it can also be just a little bit disorienting. When Uranus is involved, we're stepping outside of familiar territory. One way a transit like this can show up is through connection with people who help you feel like you're part of a group. Uranus often brings communities together around shared interests and ideals. And because this sextile is happening in Pisces and Taurus, some of those connections might intersect around spirituality and the physical world, especially through food and the natural environment. Things like cacao ceremonies, tea ceremonies, food as a medicine, community gardens, herbalism. These are all ways of bringing people together that nourish both body and spirit. The sun is on the Sabian symbol 29 Pisces, a prism, and that suggests the ability to see the divine in everything. It's like looking at life through a lens that refracts light into many colors. We might be searching for something sacred or learning to see the world through sacred eyes. Uranus' symbol 29 Taurus, two cobblers working at a table, speaks to cooperation and respect for different points of view. Two cobblers are working together doing the same work, very close to the same place, but that doesn't mean they're the same person or that they're doing everything exactly the same way. So this symbol describes understanding someone else's way of seeing life, of doing things. And that requires that we step back from our own assumptions and our own way of doing things. If we take them together, this combination of planets invites an awakening, the chance to see the world and each other with fresh eyes, and maybe to discover community in unexpected places. And now it's time for the moon report, and we begin, as always, with the week's major lunation. This week, that's the Pisces New Moon on Wednesday, March 18th at 6:23 p.m. Pacific Time at 28 degrees 27 minutes Pisces. This new moon is almost exactly in a sextile with Uranus in Taurus. It goes back to that Sun and Uranus aspect we were talking about. And new moons always mark the beginning of a new cycle. With Uranus involved, this is a cycle that's going to encourage sudden change and sometimes surprising change, the kind that shakes things loose and opens up space for something new. This new moon is ruled by Jupiter in Cancer, which accentuates emotional needs, especially those around security, comfort, and belonging. Jupiter isn't making an exact aspect, but it is square Venus in Aries, and that matters because Venus also rules Uranus and Taurus. So whatever change is unfolding now could have something to do with desire, values, money, or self-image. Maybe it's a makeover of some kind, internal or external, but it's smart to stay mindful of your budget and of your emotional bandwidth at this new moon. This new moon chart features a stellium of planets in Pisces, meaning a strong concentration of energy in a single sign. And this one is sensitive and imaginative. Mercury is retrograde at 8 degrees Pisces, conjunct the North Node at 8 degrees Pisces. Mars is at 12 Pisces, and the Sun and Moon, of course, are at 28 Pisces. That's 5 planets and points in Pisces, a sign that normally encourages rest, retreat, and surrender. Typically, when the moon is in Pisces, naps are something that we crave and are strongly recommended. I was just talking to a nurse friend this morning who said that whatever it was I came down with a few weeks ago is spreading pretty much throughout the United States. And its main characteristic is fatigue. I think it's so appropriate with a lot of planets in Pisces that so many of us are really feeling tired, needing a lot of rest and a lot of downtime. But at this new moon, the Sun and Moon are in aspect to Uranus, as I said, and Mars is also in this sign. So there might be a little too much energy to fully switch off. You might feel tired and wired at the same time. The suggestion here is to rest and release and empty your mind and soul. Even if you don't get real heavy sleep, just a little lying down time and closing your eyes will be helpful. This is about clearing space emotionally and spiritually to prepare for new experiences that are waiting. With the new moon in Pisces, it's a good time to escape ordinary reality through healthy routines and habits, to spend time alone in reflection or meditation, and to allow yourself to drift a little bit instead of trying to push things in a particular direction. This is the new moon in a lunar phase family cycle that will unfold over the coming 3 years. The new moon is a time of setting intentions and deciding exactly what we might want to see for ourselves coming up in this cycle. With Pisces, again, it's how much are you letting go? How much are you letting yourself rest and meditate and contemplate? It's also a very creative sign. So if you've been wanting to start a new project related to music or art or theater, anything we think of as creative, this is an excellent new moon for that. 9 months from now will be a first quarter in this lunar phase family cycle. That's on December 16th, 2026 at 25 degrees, 17 minutes Pisces. That's a time to take action on some of the things that you're imagining for yourself at this new moon. And look at the house of your chart, where 28 degrees, 27 minutes Pisces falls. That gives you more information about the areas of life that you are feeling excited about trying something new in. 9 months after that first quarter is a full moon on September 15th, 2027 at 22 degrees, 52 minutes Pisces. That is the point in this lunar phase family cycle where we begin to really get a clear picture of what it is we were initiating at this new moon, and to figure out how we might want to refine that as we're moving through the rest of this cycle. And the last quarter in this lunar phase family cycle is on June 14th, 2028 at 24 degrees, 36 minutes Pisces. The last quarter moon is also considered an action point in the cycle, but it's action that's based on previous experience, on what we have been going through since this new moon. So that is a time to begin to wrap up whatever you're initiating at this Pisces new moon. Let's look at the void of course moon periods for this week. On Monday, March 16th, the moon in Aquarius squares Uranus in Taurus at 12:57 p.m. Pacific time. It's void of course for 3 hours, 19 minutes, and then enters Pisces at 4:16 p.m. The moon in Aquarius tends to be focused on the future, especially if that future is involved with technology and social media. Here, it's in a square aspect with Uranus. Now, both the moon in Aquarius and the planet Uranus are also associated with astrology. During this void of course moon period, it might be a good time to do some research with astrology groups in your area or online. Financial astrology could be appealing during this void of course moon as well. Use this void of course moon period to expand your involvement with unconventional or unusual networks of people. On Wednesday, March 18th, the moon in Pisces makes a conjunction with the sun, that is the new moon, at 6:24 p.m. Pacific time. Then the moon will be void of course for 2 hours, 39 minutes, and then enter Aries at 9:03 p.m. The desire to escape the harshness of reality is often very strong at a Pisces new moon, or just a Pisces moon generally. With so many planets in Pisces at this new moon, we need to be a little more conscious about the way we choose to escape reality. Maybe meditation or yoga, taking hot soaks in water, being by the water in general. And if you like the fantasy genre, you might enjoy reading some books set in a fantasy world or watching movies. They'd be a healthy and imaginative way to retreat. Use this void of course moon period to build the habit of disconnecting in a beneficial and inspiring way. On Friday, March 20th, the moon in Aries makes a conjunction with Venus at 2:23 a.m. Pacific time. It's void of course for a long time, for 21 hours and 12 minutes, then enters Taurus at 11:35 p.m. It's a conjunction of two fairly gentle planets in a somewhat rowdy sign of Aries. This void of course moon period could be an opportunity to gather with some of the women in your life and release excess energy through dancing or drumming, whatever you might all like to do together. Use this void of course moon period to develop a habit of spending quality time with your friends and cutting loose in appropriate and somewhat safe ways. The Sun enters Aries on Friday, March 20th at 7:46 a.m. Pacific time. And this is the Aries Equinox, the official welcome of spring in the Northern Hemisphere and autumn in the Southern Hemisphere. This is considered one of the most important charts of the year, especially for mundane astrologers who study world trends, because it sets the tone for the months ahead, especially describing the period from this equinox until the Aries equinox in 2027. And not surprisingly, this is a chart that suggests a very intense year. Just a couple of days ago, we will have experienced the Pisces new moon with that strong Pisces stellium, very dreamy and emotional. But now with the sun and moon moving into Aries, the energy is shifting dramatically. Now we have a stellium in Aries, and that emphasizes action, urgency, and new beginnings. The sun is at 0 degrees Aries, Neptune is at 1 Aries, Saturn is at 4 Aries, Venus at 17 Aries, and the moon at 20 degrees Aries. That is a lot of fire. When the sun is in Aries, themes of assertiveness and independence come to the forefront. Aries energy is pioneering energy. It's about developing courage. It's very loyal, but it has a strong need for moving quickly. This is a season of impatience and impulsiveness. And very often we find that we'd rather act first and think later. The Aries season marks the beginning of the astrological year, and many cultures celebrate this moment with festivals and holidays that are centered on renewal and rebirth. During this season, we see celebrations like Nowruz, the Persian New Year, as well as Easter, Passover, Holi, Songkran, and Vaisakhi. These are all festivals that echo these themes of cleansing, color, courage, and new beginnings. The message of Aries season is simple, but it's very powerful. Something wants to begin. You might be feeling a surge of motivation or urgency, restlessness. And that's really natural right now, especially with so many planets in Aries. Just remember that with so much cardinal fire in the sky, it's important to pace ourselves. The sun will be in Aries until April 19th, giving us several weeks to initiate, experiment, and take those brave first steps. Mercury stations direct on Friday, March 20th at 12:33 p.m. Pacific Time at 8 degrees Pisces. And as we often say, whenever a planet is stationing, whether it's turning direct or retrograde, it tends to make itself felt very strongly. Everything about the planet is heightened and intensified, and it seems to get a little louder in our world. Mercury's been retrograde since February 25th, when it turned retrograde at 22 degrees Pisces. It entered its shadow period on February 11th, and it won't fully leave that shadow until April 9th, when it gets back to 22 Pisces, the degree where it turned retrograde. So while this station brings a sense of moving forward, we're still in a little bit of a review phase for a little while longer. This station happens just a couple of hours after the sun enters Aries, which adds more of a sense of urgency and momentum. Even though the aspects aren't exact, Mercury is in a close conjunction with the north node of the moon, and it's conjunct Mars, and that gives this moment an extra intensity. That combination says it's important to be mindful of our words and our movements, because our thoughts can turn quickly into actions right now, not always the most well-considered actions, and sharp language or impulsive decisions can land a little harder than intended. Mercury stations can also stir up the systems that Mercury rules. So don't be surprised if you're seeing a lot of technology acting up, schedule shifting, information that needs to be corrected. Mercury will remain in Pisces until April 14th, keeping the tone intuitive and emotional. Clear logic may still take a little bit of a back seat to instinct and feeling. So it's a good idea to double check your facts while also checking in with your inner guidance. Mars trines Jupiter on Saturday, March 21st at 5:01 p.m. Pacific Time at 15 degrees Pisces and Cancer. Mars is the planet of action. It represents our drive, our motivation, and our sense of get up and go. It describes how we pursue the things that we want. Mars shows how we go after the things that we desire. And with Jupiter involved, the energy gets bigger and bolder and a lot more enthusiastic, which can be great, but it can also tip over into overzealousness. Competition could be very fierce, and ambitions can run high. It's a great time to assert yourself and to pursue your goals, but it's equally important to remember good sportsmanship and having a sense of generosity toward others. Under this transit, confidence, physical vitality, and initiative can all be very pronounced. You might feel ready to make real progress towards something that means a lot to you. It is an excellent time to start, say, a serious exercise program, get involved in sports, or just move your body more. Physical activity tends to feel very satisfying when Mars connects with Jupiter. Just be mindful not to push too far, too fast. Jupiter tends to magnify whatever it touches, so pacing yourself is important. On Sunday, March 22nd, the Sun makes a conjunction with Neptune at 4:18 a.m. Pacific Time at 1 degree Aries. Aries is the sign of the pioneer, and when the Sun and Neptune are coming together here, creativity takes on a bold quality. Both of these planets are strongly associated with imagination and inspiration. So this is a powerful moment to take on a pioneering spirit in your creativity, to experiment, to discover your own niche or your own personal style, something that feels uniquely yours. Neptune dissolves boundaries while the Sun seeks expression of what it is. And in Aries, that expression wants to lead rather than follow. This transit also brings up questions about heroes, mentors, role models. We all need people we can look up to. And having mentors can be very supportive, but it's important to remember that they're human just like you. Ideals can inspire us, but they can also disappoint us if we forget that no one is perfect. As the saying goes, to err is human, to forgive divine. Making something meaningful of your life and your world ultimately falls on your shoulders. This is a reminder that we need to be our own heroes and to create our own dreams rather than waiting for someone else to do it for us. Well, unfortunately, it was another busy week with no time for a listener question. And it's a shame because I have a couple of really good ones that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. We'll get back to listener questions next week. And if there's any pressing question that you have about astrology that you would like me to answer on a future episode, leave a voicemail of 1 minute or less at speakpipe.com/Big Sky Astrology Podcast, or just send me an email at april@bigskyastrology.com and be sure to put podcast question in the subject line. Well, that is everything on my show sheet, so I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you for listening to the Big Sky Astrology Podcast. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe or follow the show in your app of choice. Leave a rating or review, and I hope that you'll help spread the word by telling an astrology-loving friend about the podcast. You can read show notes and full transcripts and leave your comments about each episode at bigskyastropod.com. Thank you so much to everyone who's shown support for the podcast, and especially at my September Podathon. On each episode, I'm thanking some of my financial donors by name. This week, let's give a Big Sky Astrology Podcast shout out to Ellen Sturm and Jack Daft, who has donated to every single Podathon. Jack and Ellen, thank you so much for listening to the podcast and for supporting the show with your donations. If you would like to support the show and receive access to my bonus video episodes for donors only, please go to bigskyastropod.com and make a contribution of $10 or more to get access to those episodes. You can also make a one-time donation in any amount or become an ongoing monthly contributor. That's it for this episode. Join me again bright and early next Monday. And until then, keep your feet on the ground and your eyes on the stars.